It's Our Story. Joan Headley, St. Louis, Missouri.
After the Salk vaccine was developed in 1955, then there was less money that the March of Dimes could collect, and so they decided that the people who were in the respiratory centers, if they hadn't already gone home, that they should work really hard to get them home, because they realized it was obviously less expensive for them to be living at home, but also it was a better life, or better quality of life for people to be living at home. And so the respiratory centers closed, and I think that made the newsletter even more important, because people were now spread out and they needed that connection to know what someone else was doing. And it wasn't just, you know, who married whom, but it was survival stories, and these are the things that I did. If you read back some of the old gazettes, they would talk about, you know, how they modified wheelchairs, you know, what their father did so that they could, you know, get in the house, or what their uncle did so they could go to school. So that was a lot of what was in the newsletter. And then when the vaccine came about, and there were fewer and fewer polio people to add to the list, then you know, she reached out to, and our people gave her names of people like with spinal cord injury and other significant disabilities, so they became part of receiving the newsletter as well. But they would write to her, and then she would take their letters and publish them. In the early ones, I think she published them pretty much as they were given to her, and then as she developed as an editor, and the newsletter developed, and she edited more and wrote stories. And then as the independent living movement started and became part of, you know, what was happening in all of society, then she started publishing more of that information about the laws and, you know, 504, excuse me, you know, the Rehab Act and that sort of information as well. I mean, when I came in 87, and actually I came in after basically she was communicating with, you know, a lot of people, and she was communicating with a lot of polio people, and it was in the early 80s when polio people started reporting that they were having problems again, and the whole late effects of polio. And so a lot of the work then focused on, you know, the late effects of polio, or problems that polio survivors were having as they were aging. And that's when I came in. The other part of, I think, of the history of the organization was, and it was before I came, I think it was I came in 87, and I think it was just before that in 87, Gini realized that all the information that ventilator users who were polio survivors, all the information that they had, you know, developed from you know, being in an iron lung, to using chest shells, to using, you know, other ventilation types of equipment, they realized that that was important for other disabilities as well too. So she developed that newsletter called the International Ventilator Users Newsletter, and that also brought in other disabilities, people with spinal cord injury, ALS, muscular dystrophy, or people who use home mechanical ventilation. And that's another part of what we do today.
The It's Our Story project is a national effort to make disability history public and accessible. Visit us at www.itsourstory.org or on the It's Our Story project YouTube channel.